Welcome to the H2Know Podcast, where we take you beyond the headlines and into the heart of Hamilton Community Schools. From classroom innovation and career pathways to success stories and community connections, this is your inside look at what makes Hamilton shine. Here's your host, Zach Harig.
Hello, Hamilton. Welcome into the H2Know Podcast. Another great episode on the docket today. Everybody's favorite topic, construction.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, Dr. Brad Lusk is here, our esteemed superintendent.
Oh, let's use that loosely.
Here in HCS. A lot going on around the district in the world of construction. Yeah. A lot of timelines coming up, a lot of different things that parents need to be aware of and the why behind them. And that's why we started this podcast, is to kind of dive in deeper and let parents know what is happening and why.
Yeah.
So without further ado, big announcement. 8th grade is moving up to the high school next school year, 2026-27. An interesting move, but one that had to be made. The middle school roof is being completely replaced. Why don't you dive into that a little bit? We can kind of break it down and chat about it, but initially, what's the overall why?
I think we all know that the middle school has been around for a couple decades, a couple years, if you will, a long time. And unfortunately, the roof needs a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And we knew it, but I don't think we fully understood it until we really got into the design process of the construction. And they really started doing some deep dives into snow loads and such, which we can come back to in a minute. But really, when it got to that point, that's when we really realized the extent of the work that had to be done. Once that extent became known and we had multiple companies and multiple evaluations to make sure that work had to be done, once that was fully determined, that's when it became, okay, what are we going to do with the building? And when we got to the planning of the building, then it turned into, we just didn't have enough space. We had to shut down portions of the building. So I'm going to start there as to what kind of led to that. And then we can come back to the construction if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So once we established the work that had to be done, they really came with a timeline. And the first timeline really stretched over 5 summers.
Yeah.
That was not going to work. And I say that because once we started diving into getting feedback from OAK as to our construction management company, Brad, companies aren't going to bid on that project. It's 5 summers and that's 5 years. And then I got into, they don't know what their manpower is going to be. They don't know what the price of materials are going to be. It's just too much of a risk. So it's either going to be a very astronomical price or they're just not going to bid on it because they want sustained work. Made 100% sense to me. I'm not in the field, but it made sense to us. And we got multiple, again, feedbacks on that. And they said, the companies just aren't going to do it. It's not going to be easy to get somebody to bid on that project. So then the conversation boiled down to, okay, how much work can we get done in the most condensed time period and still be able to get it done right, on time, efficiently, and so on. So they came back with this round 2 of really a year and a half-ish, I'll call it, a little under 2 years, as to 2 summers and a full school year. Okay. Once we realized that and they showed wings that had to be closed down during certain points, we started evaluating, can we relocate classes? Because we couldn't run school, obviously, in that 8th grade wing during that's phase 1B, if you will, on our map that we shared out. That wing there's going to be closed off. Can we move students somewhere? Did it automatically mean 8th grade? No. But we knew that wing wouldn't be usable. So that's when we, much like the email I sent out, really evaluated a lot of different aspects of, can a grade go over to cultivate? Met with them, took a tour, really explored that opportunity because we thought, man, it could be close. We kind of go back and forth already. Yes, there's separation church and state piece on there. We want to respect that. But at the same token, during the week, it's empty. We really explored that. We just couldn't find that they have enough room for our kids. Then I said, well, can we use the portables on that? So we looked at some combos. We still needed portables even with the current middle school students. And we're going to use them next year for current students. We just couldn't make that work. Then I got into, the virtual school, aka the old church, CRC church. Was that possible? So we started exploring that. We couldn't make that work in the basement on that. Plus, then it really derails the whole point of the Sandy View move. We put a ton of time, months and months, into exploring different options, looking at portables. Some people may say, well, you say it's too expensive, right? What the cost is? And then it gets down to, you buying them? Okay, if you're buying them, what are you going to do with them after a year? Renting them? Okay, the cost of renting to buying is not really good. You're not saving much money there. And then it's not simply just taking them. I thought, I've been gone through this process before. I thought you get a portable. Yeah, you put on a good slab there, you hook it up, and you're good to go.
Not that easy.
It's not that easy. I learned a lot about portables and how you have to have foundations, then you have to get licensing for that and certifications and moving. I mean, even just talking about ours, we're talking 75 grand plus to move it. I mean, I'm talking to this guy that does it for a job. And he's like, Brad, as long as you start lifting it an inch off the ground, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars. And I'm like, wow. And then as soon as you move it, then you got to make sure you're up to the latest code. Whereas if you've had a portal for a couple of years, you might not be in compliance with code. So it was a lot of deep learning that I had to do that I was not familiar with. And so when it got down to that point, moving portables, getting portables, selling, renting, all those things, financially, it didn't make sense to us. Then we started looking at other options. And when we started really looking at, okay, we have a building that's close by. Is it possible to have a grade go to the high school? And through our admin staff and started walking the tours and having the convos to see, okay, we can make this work. This actually can work. Once that was established, we thought, okay, I think it's possible with just physical space. Let's start working through some logistics. And then we started working through some logistics. And I will tell you, everybody's been great. I sent the email out to the community, to the parents, the staff, the community. Some of our staff have some questions and concerns, which rightfully so, they should. The parents have been great. They've given me a lot of patience and flexibility with that. So I thank you for that. There's gonna be a hiccup or two. We know that going along there, but we continue to meet on that weekly to keep working through logistics and steps and making sure everything's all the way down even to the lunch line, making sure we know where the kids are going to the lunch line. We're going through the whole 9 yards.
And let's face it. I mean, it's not a problem you wanted to face, right? The middle school roof. I mean, you and I both get calls. Hey, it's leaking again. It's leaking again. It's leaking again. And the reason I got calls was we need to show the community how bad this roof is, and it is really bad. Multiple leaks throughout the school year, and it's nothing that you could keep putting off. So that's where I guess how big of a burden off your shoulders is it knowing that it will be done over a year to a year and a half, those 2 summers in the school year?
Yeah, that's going to be a big thing is like you said, it's one of those that we knew a blue star, the wind blows, you might lose power. We got the generator. We've tackled that. Now we're good. That flicks on, we can get going. Now the next step was obviously the middle school roof. And that has been it's been a tough thing. Everything from hallway leaks to above classrooms in the hallway to locker rooms it's tough. I mean, it is really tough. And it's hard for kids to go through the school and no, it's not your fault. It's not anything, but you see trash cans hit and miss places because it's just leaking through and going into that. And kids are used to it. Sometimes then it becomes a little bigger, then it gets on the floor. You got to clean it up. It's really, really been bad. So I know short term, I say short term as over the next year and a half, it's going to be a lot of work and it's going to be tough for many to adapt to that and make it work to get through the next year, but long term, huge. We will continue now having a solid roof over our kids and our staff, making sure they can do what they do in school and do well. And not have to worry about that, not have to worry about leaks. If there's a leak, we can patch it. We don't have to worry about it falling in.
And we talked about 8th grade going to the high school, but there is the aspect of grades 5 through 7 shifting a little bit throughout the school year. And I don't want to hold you to this too much because with construction it can all change, but what do you expect that to kind of look like and maybe just some of those hiccups to be next school year?
That's a great question. With having the one building, and I should say, we also explored the 5th grade and the elementary.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something I didn't mention a few minutes ago was we explored 5th grade staying or 4th grade staying in the elementary for an extra year.
Right.
Then it got into staffing and specials and MTSS model and special education, everything. We quickly realized that just wasn't going to work.
Right.
So we tried it. We really walked through it. We couldn't make that one work. So with the 4th grade moving up, going into 5th grade, let's look for 5th through 7th. Yeah, there's going to be some hiccups. It's not going to be like this year where they're just going to be traversing everything through the hallways, minus the water spots. But it's going to be one of those that the first half of that year is that 8th grade wing per se is going to be shut off. I mean, that is going to be shut off. So it's going to be a little bit easier for the first half. They can adapt to the change. Obviously, less students on the hallway. Lunch is going to be a little bit different on that. It's just be a little quieter, with one less grade in the building. Once there's going to be some shifts in the building. So we know right around that December, January, halfway through the year, there's going to be a shift where some staff are going to move from where they're currently going to be in the middle school into that 8th grade wing. I call it 8th grade wing, the other wing.
Right.
That'll be done first. So there is going to be a move in the middle of the year. That's probably going to be the biggest hurdle to come through, the hiccup, if you will. And I know after a week or two, we're going to adjust to it, but it's going to be different. It's not something that we do year to year where we switch classes, but we don't switch physical rooms
Right.
necessarily with our staff and whatnot. Again, kudos to our staff. And I'm talking custodial maintenance for helping with the move and whatnot. Also our instructional staff for working through that. That's going to be a shift, on there. Now, when that shift happens, still the middle of that building is still going to have some construction done, as per the map that you can see. In that, we are going to have to close off a hallway or two. So students are going to have to do a little bit of jogging around the outsides or use some different paths. Much like a construction road, you got to take the little detour. We might have little detour signs out, but we're gonna make the best of it. And that'll be the second half of the year. Obviously, the summers probably won't be too disruptive, but the whole goal is to allow the construction companies to get in, get what they have to get done, and hopefully kind of use the term turn and burn. Get it done and move on to the next spot as quickly as possible.
And by the 2027-28 school year, everything should be done.
It's done and ready to rock.
It's not real wood, but there you go.
Get back to
awesome. And for those that are listening right now, you can find a detailed story on our website, www.hamiltonschools.us. For those watching, you can see at the bottom of your screen where you can find that article as well, and read about everything that we're kind of talking about as we talk about transparency.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here. Let's talk about the money.
Yeah.
This is part of the bond project in 2023, and that's why we try to communicate how pivotal this was for things like roofing and HVAC. Let's touch on just kind of the differences between getting it done, in a year and a half versus the 5-year plan, and why this worked out as far as, from a financial standpoint for the district.
This is one of the very few projects I can say that exceeded the budget. That we had a lot, because what I mean by that is we all knew that it had to be redone.
Yeah.
And like I said, and even when they do the estimate, they go off the estimate and they have these yellow, green, red scales based on time. And there's some research that goes into how they label these as to red needs to be done, yellow, orange can be done in a couple of years, and then green is obviously good when they give us our feedback on facility items to address. This was a red.
Yeah.
Dark red.
Yeah.
I would say
in 2023, before 2023.
Before 2023. Yeah. So we were a little over that. We were really red. When they really started looking into it, that's when the issues started coming into it. And so the estimate that we had exceeded. It decently exceeded the amount that we had estimated. So it was really pivotal that we had great deals and great bids along the way, that we had some extra money that we could put towards this project. Because really, it wasn't just, okay, peel the top back, basically put some shingles per se back on the house and you're all good. No, we're going past the shingles or past the deck. We're going down the deck board. And also, so we're coming from the top and also from the bottom, because they have the ceiling tiles in the room. Those will be all replaced and all the tracks will replace on there. So it's very extensive, and this is one of the bigger jobs that they've actually had to do, because we just haven't been able to do the maintenance on the building for a number of years, decades, if you will, along the way. So yes, it is going to cost a decent amount of money, but it's better to do it now when we can get it done, and we don't keep putting it off where it's a complete fall through, or we have that issue where we have to shut down parts and redo that. We're at a pretty pivotal point, I would say, and that was their feedback is, Brad, you're at a pivotal point where we can do it, and it's going to cost some money, but we're going to be good going forward. We can't just do the old spray coat on top of the rubber, if you will.
Sandbags on top of the roof.
Yeah, we just can't do that anymore. And so while it's going to be a little costly for us long term, it puts that building in a way better situation where we can keep it going for 10, 20, 30 more years and get our money's worth out of it, just like we have with all the other buildings.
We're going to talk about the Hamilton Virtual School here in a second, but before we do, let's talk about the 2023 bond. What can people expect else from that bond? Is it all done? Where do we stand on bond projects?
Yeah, so bond projects, so the actual site from the road per se, you're driving by, you're looking at it. Obviously, the middle school roof is by far the biggest one that we have left over that we got to get taken care of on that. We also are going to see some concrete and some exterior work that's done on the middle school. The little drive that comes around the back, you'll see buses come around in the morning. That'll be redone because that's a very tight passage for our busing. And if you go back there, you'll see some holes and whatnot along the way. And We just got to clean it up. We got to clean it up, make it right. And so we're going to be able to get that all done along the back there and a little bit out front. So those will be the bulk things that people see with their own eyes on the exterior roof. Obviously, you'll see a lot of that for a year and a half. Outside of that, which I know we're going to talk about the virtual school shortly, but also there were some pieces in the last summer furniture order. There were some classrooms we didn't touch on that pieces. And so we're going to actually finish that up. So if there's some leftover funds that we can actually do a couple more classrooms or a couple different programs with some standardized district furniture, we're going to do that.
How happy are you from the initial bond planning process to where we are now, 4 years later? A lot of work has gotten done. How do you feel from the pre-planning to now?
I will tell you, it's been a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I've been very transparent. This is my first time going through this, and I've asked a lot of questions. You could ask GMB and OAK. They're like, wow, this guy always has questions. And I walk that line of taking good advice and trusting the people that you employed to work through that. They're the experts, but also making sure that it makes sense and that I can justify an answer to a community member or a staff member or student, whatever the case. I want to be able to at least answer that question, because if it doesn't make sense, then where are you going to get the trust from with the community? So it has been a learning curve. I'm happy we've gotten all this work done and more, which has been the great thing is I feel like our district is, I guess I'm a little biased in this. I feel like our district has been set up pretty good.
Yeah.
In that the money we're putting into items are long-term solutions. And so that's been great. And so we can set our district up for the next, not just year, but years down the road, where furniture, I don't know the last time we actually ordered furniture. And you can go through classrooms and not see 5, 6 different colored chairs in the classrooms and so on. They're all standardized across the board. So between the middle school and the high school, you might just talk about adjusting the seat size, but we have the same chairs. Elementary rooms are standardized. I should say the last one of the other small pieces we're going to have is we just finished up subcontracting out some classroom technology upgrades with the elementary schools. So now every elementary school classroom that you're going to walk into, they're going to have the standardized technology in there. We're not having VGA cords for like our computers or laptops, everything. We're going to have HDMI, making sure we have the universal pull down screens. All that is being upgraded to make sure that we're all standardized across the board. So one classroom doesn't go to another classroom. Oh, shoot, I wish I had my Blu-ray. Well, we actually have it across the board.
Well, in the way that you've thought about things too is, having an insider's view, do it right the first time, right?
Yeah.
That's your big quote. You've always said that. And that was really the quote that came to my mind when you brought up the 8th grade going to the high school and, hey, you know what, let's take our lumps, take it on the chin for a year, but instead of 5 years and these leaks continue, getting things done and doing it right for, a decade down the road.
Right. And so, rather than kind of nickel and dime it along the way, it's kind of, let's just take your lump, pay the piper, let's get it done right as well as we can the first time. And that should set us up, because if it's good for today, it's got to be good for tomorrow. It's got to be good for next week. It's got to be good for next year. And that's hopefully how we've gone along the process. And I think it's paid off well. A lot of learning, a lot of time, a lot of credit to our staff for the number of meetings they've had to be in and whatnot. But I feel like we've done a pretty good job along the way on there.
And speaking of setting the district up, Hamilton Virtual School now has its own facility. We have touched on that. And for those of you listening, you can go back and find another H2Know podcast where you and I actually sat down and really dove into the why and how it all happened. This episode is more construction based. Fire suppression has been a hot button topic. The well has been a hot button topic. How are those things coming along with Hamilton Virtual?
So the piece with, let's talk about the fire suppression. So fire detection and fire suppression were two of the things that were in the elevator and the water were the big four that were in there regarding that building. And so the more we got into that, obviously the fire detection is going to go standard. I mean, that's pretty standard across the board. And I don't think we're going to run into too many issues along the way. We really don't talk a lot about that. That's pretty set up, for lack of better terms, pretty pre-planned. So that one I feel good about. The fire suppression is one of those that, why is it a big deal, right? Well, you're putting water through there. You're putting water throughout the whole building to kind of knock the fire down. Well, where's the water come from? Well, it's got to come from a pump. You don't just It's not like you put a garden hose on the tap in the kitchen sink and you just spray it down a
Yeah.
little bit. It's got to come from somewhere. Well, you got to have a reservoir you got to have a tank of the water in there. Okay, Brad. Well, it makes sense. Yeah. Where's the tank going to go? Is it going to go below ground? Is it going to go in ground? Is it going to be inside the building? Is it going to be outside the building? How big of a tank is that? Well, okay. So then you got the size of the tank. Well, where does that water come from? Well, it's got to come from a well. Well, where's the well at? So if you start really thinking through that, I mean, the outside people are like, yeah, it's the fire suppression, it's the sprinkler system, that's what it is. You really start digging into it. It's a lot more complicated than just simply quote unquote hooking up a hose and running it to some sprinklers and dousing it. So I will say that's where it has been a collaborative effort, and even that's not necessarily standardized all the time. Where it's not just I work with GMB or OAK and we organize. Okay, this is what it is. They actually have to work with the fire chiefs in the respective areas in which they're from. And so then you're with the fire chiefs and you're with the health department. And so it's not just simply something that is a pretty standard operating. And Chief Harig, obviously with the tragedy, again, prayers to the family on that. I got to spend some time with him even, before the accident, where he was actually very grateful and gracious, I should say, to our district as to being very common sense of, first we thought we were going to have some like 40,000 gallon tank. And he looked at it, he says, Brad, this is a well-driven piece on there. It's not city water. You guys just need to knock the water down and fire down until we can get there. So we're going to bring the water with us. So we were actually able to go a little bit smaller in the tank into about that 15,000 gallon tank, which was very beneficial for us. I mean, you go from 45,000 down to 15.
Yeah.
And it all fits within the regulations, but
Yeah.
it was a common sense approach of, you guys just need to knock it down. Just manage it until we get there. We're going to bring our own water. We're not going to tap in to your system. And so that really was beneficial for us. And then once we had a smaller tank, now we can locate that a little bit smaller area, not have as large of a footprint. But that's something that also we thought we could maybe do inside under, in the ground. It's not going to be able to happen. It's most likely we have to do on the outside. So we're trying to find a little area we can actually build somewhat of a little outside building, for lack of better terms, that we can store that stuff and make sure that it works very efficiently.
And elevator and everything else is going well around Hamilton Virtual.
Yep. So the virtual, the elevator piece, worked with the church members on that so they understand. We're in that piece where we meet with them every couple of weeks. Larry Meisty and I have some text conversations back and forth. We'll phone call. They've been great. And we're really working with them as to making sure that we can be as communicative along the way as possible so they can plan and know upcoming things. I mean, starting this week, we're doing some abatement in the basement, which is fine. We'll get that all cleaned up. And then really within the next week or two, first part of February, really the quote unquote shovels, well, not shovels in the ground right now. Hard to get that.
A little frozen.
Yeah. But, the hammer will be on the head of the nail here soon. Actually, work will start getting done here in the next couple weeks of February.
And you have high confidence in the well and water and all that.
So that's the piece I'm not going to give up on it. And I know that Brookheist is looking, I believe it's Brookheist has done a lot of testing along the locations. We're going to keep testing when the weather turns a little bit more favorable on that to see. We obviously have a well that is being attached off our property. I'm very in the mindset of trying to find one on our property. We can develop that. It might take a little time, and we're going to work with our community partners and community members to hopefully get that resolved, make sure we can kind of play nice in the sandbox for a little bit, but hopefully then be able to get on our own property and make that the best.
And as you said, it's January 28 right now. Construction is getting set to start, timeline, everything. What are some of the other big projects? I know you mentioned the elevator and fire suppression and things, but what are the other big projects that crews are getting in there and doing to the basement?
So if you want to even take an outside step inward, I mean, when you drive by, if you drive by right now, you're probably not going to see much outside because it's going to be mostly on the inside. But outside, we're going to have some playground equipment. We're going to be cleaning up, taking out some of the asphalt areas, putting down some wood chips. So again, there's more of a playground area. And some playground equipment, jungle gyms and so on, the kids and stuff to play on. And so we're going to put that in those areas. We're going to move a little bit of the fencing because that parsonage also came with the church. We're going to make a little bit more of a kind of a soccer field-ish outdoor area for kids to utilize there. So you won't see that until that spring, summertime period, along with the fire pump and so on. Those little buildings will be built along that way. But on the inside, we've already had some contractors walk through. So in the The church would call it the fellowship hall, gym and cafeteria, type of thing. That'll be where the kids will have their lunch. As there's some carpet in there right now. We're going to some carpet squares. We'll end up taking that up and putting some LVT down. So that's easier to clean and still has enough traction. So it's not a slip and fall hazard, but it'd be a lot easier to clean and maintain for everybody in that way. So that work can get started pretty soon. You go down to the basement, and then there's some classrooms or some rooms that will be combined to make one room, and there's others that are not. They'll be standalone, just like they are. So some of that work of combining rooms and on the flooring within those rooms, that work can start getting done. And, and along with some of those, like I said, aren't being touched other than some cosmetic wear. We can actually do some painting and so on. So a lot of it will be done, inside will be done early, for lack of terms. Plus, again, fire suppression, fire detection, that work can be done inside.
The house that is coming with the pool, any current thoughts? I know we've kicked around a lot of different ideas. Where do you currently stand on that?
So that is something we're still kicking around a little bit. The thought process is can we make that into, we've talked about like a little bit of a learning lab, not a school or anything of that nature, but is that something we could actually somehow some educational opportunities in for like our HVAC? Can HVAC come in and do some diagnoses as to diagnose an issue that's in there when it comes to that HVAC system, heating, cooling system? Maybe that can work. Can the Ignite program might be able to do some work on that if it's landscaping and so on, much like they're doing some of the Habitat for Humanity stuff. Could that maybe be done around the house? Is there some areas that we can mock some bedroom or kitchen safety or so on for some of our students and other programs where they can learn some hands-on pieces on there where that they might not be able to do that in their current environment? So that's the piece on there. We're really trying to we have an opportunity to take a house. A true regular house. Can it become a learning opportunity? And of course, we want to make sure that everything is up to snuff when it comes to safety and code and educational opportunities. But, those are some things we've talked about and started to explore a little bit to see if we can benefit our kids.
Do you have any message to the community or anything about, everything that's going on right now, construction wise, or there's a lot. And like you said, there might be some growing pains, there might be some hiccups along the way, but what would your message be to the community on all this?
So my message would be thank you. Thank you for the patience. Thank you for the support along the way. I try to touch base and just ask some random questions of people I bump into, and they sometimes they ask some great questions, or sometimes I don't get it, but we trust you. Sometimes I don't agree with you, Brad. I don't. Why would we do this? And I just try to have a conversation with them, and I appreciate their understanding of like, okay, I might not agree with you, but at least you took some time to explain that. And that's all I can ask. And so I appreciate the time, the patience, the understanding, and I guess the support too along the way. We're trying to make this the best, and there will be some bumps in the road without any doubt, but we are going to fix that as much as we can. And I just say thank you, sorry, and as for patience as we go along the way, we really want to set up the district for long-term success. And obviously the roof is going to do that for the middle school, for classes to come, and the virtual school. We've actually, we just the other day, Mary, we had a meeting and she's like, yeah, we just had 7 full-time students just enroll. And it is just a program that is just continuing to grow. And it's hard to keep the seams, but there's just so much room we have right now with Sandy View. We did not foresee it growing this fast. And now we're going to have a situation for next school year where we can house up to 300 students. And so that'd be great.
It's a great problem to have.
I'd rather have that than the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything we talked about on today's episode can be found on our website, hamiltonschools.us. Everything from Hamilton Virtual School enrollment information to the 2023 bond updates, and then everything with the 8th grade move up as well in the 2026-27 school year. This has been another episode of the H2Know Podcast. Be sure to listen to us anywhere you get your podcasts, Amazon Music, Amazon Podcasts, I should say, YouTube, Spotify. It's all out there. So thanks for being on.